Hi, Demetrius Sherrod here in the Cobb TV studios for Chatting with the Chief. And joining me here in studio is Chief Mike Register. Chief, how's it going today?
That's going great. How about you?
Doing well. All right. Well, let's jump into our first topic for today, which is specialized units. I know the department has several different units, such as SWAT and EOD. Can you give us an overview of that?
Oh yeah. You know, when the citizens think about our response, they think about patrol and detectives, but the Cobb County Police Department has a tremendous amount of specialized response capabilities. You've already mentioned SWAT, you've mentioned our explosive ordnance disposal, EOD. We have our underwater search and recovery team, crisis negotiation teams, mobile field force, K9, a host of others. But when you look at let's just take a couple and examine them. Our EOD unit, man, is very technical for them to respond to a possible improvised explosive device. And certainly as we look at what's happening globally with terrorism, we are so very blessed to have an EOD unit with their capabilities. For instance, when you just look at the training, just to have the basic certification, they have to go to Redstone Arsenal in Alabama, and they have to take a 6-week course that's very stringent and complex. Then they have to go back every 3 years to get recertified, and that's just to keep the basic certification. But of course, they continually train 3 days a week, and they also do training all over the country for advanced certifications. For instance, we have 2 techs that are members of the Nuclear Stabilization Program from the federal government, and we also have a tech that is a certified underwater EOD tech. So they do a tremendous amount of training because it's very complex subject matter. And then when you look at SWAT, they also do a tremendous amount of training because they never know what they're going to be confronted with. You know, just from the basic level, just to get a basic certification, they do several weeks of basic and advanced training. They also train 3 days per week each month, and also I think in October of each year they take 1 to 2 weeks of additional training back to back, and also they're traveling to refine their knowledge and improve their knowledge and bring that back in order to make Cobb County a safer place if that type of response is needed.
All right. And I know a lot of the citizens may have seen like the K9 unit, but there are a couple of units that people might not know about, such as Cage and Viper. Can you give us just a brief synopsis of what they do?
Well, you know, when you look at our Cage unit is currently assigned to the Marietta Smyrna Cobb Task Force, MCS. And that is our gang unit, and CAGE stands for Criminal Apprehension and Gang Enforcement. And that's what they do on a daily basis. They engage gang-related activities. It's not just from an enforcement standpoint, but also from a preventative standpoint. They also work with our state and federal partners and our district attorney, the sheriff's office, and all of our interagency partners to make sure that we are addressing any gang-related criminal issues that we have here within the county. And also Viper, it stands for Violent Incident Prevention and Early Response. It is a street-level unit that deals with all sorts of serious and violent crime, whether it be using stakeouts in reference to a robbery trend or some other type of criminal trend. They work very hard in conjunction with our TAC team. They are actually, they work together on a nightly basis in Cobb County, addressing various areas and various crime-related issues, and they do a very good job. They take a tremendous amount of violent criminals off the street each month, and they take a tremendous amount of illicit weapons off the street each month.
All right. Now, National Police Week was recognized last week. What did Cobb PD specifically do locally to acknowledge it?
Yeah, well, you know, National Police Week, they have the National Police Memorial in Washington, D.C., and we actually send representatives from the police department, Cobb County, to Washington, D.C. Last year in 2017, unfortunately, we lost 135 officers in the line of duty. Locally, the local chapter of the Fraternal Order of Police, the FOP, they host an annual event in May to honor and to pay homage and remember the fallen officers that we, the Cobb County family, when I say the Cobb County family, not just Cobb County, but all the jurisdictions within Cobb County, unfortunately have lost over the years. I think right now, if you go back, the first officer, 1954, was the first line of duty death, and we've had 13 officers within the county and the various jurisdictions killed in the line of duty, and that is just a yearly event that helps us just say thank you and remember the supreme sacrifice that they gave.
Good. And switching gears off of that, there is a video that has been circulating. I'm sure a lot of our citizens have seen it about a recent traffic stop. And the biggest question I believe citizens have is why so many officers involved?
Yeah, well, and I've saw the social media posts, and I've had the opportunity to speak with many citizens. What they need to understand that the response was not because a young man had ran a stop sign. He did run a stop sign. Cobb County officer was behind him some distance back, saw him disregard a stop sign. The officer attempted to make a traffic stop, called radio, activated his emergency equipment. The young man continued to travel, refused to stop down the street, and then he stopped at an intersection, made a left, and continued to travel, and finally he came to a stop in the driveway. And when the officer made contact with him, the young man was very belligerent, would not cooperate. He told the officer that he was at his house and did not want the officer on his property. The officer tried to explain to him that all he wanted to do was talk to him about running the stop sign and the violation that occurred. The young man continued to be verbally belligerent. He refused anything the officer asked him to do. He began to make his way inside the dwelling, the house. The officer actually at one point made contact with him to prevent him from entering his house. And when he did that, the young man became physically combative with the officer. The officer advised radio that he could possibly be in a physical confrontation and asked for another unit. Radio put out that an officer had advised about a physical confrontation and needed assistance. There was other officers in the vicinity that was patrolling, trying to make the area safe. They heard the radio request and they traveled to the location. There were several officers that arrived on the scene. All the officers were professional, never raised their voice, courteous demeanor. They handled the situation, took the young man who, by the way, had a suspended driver's license and was on probation and should not have been operating a vehicle, into custody. And as the situation became controlled, they began to disperse.
All right. Well, thank you, Chief, for sharing that information, and hopefully that gives our citizens a little bit more insight into the situation. But that's all the time that we have for today. But join us for the Faith Forum that's coming up on June 4th at the Training Center. And for more information on that, please check out our Facebook page.